Okay. Hi, everyone. This is my second video of me reading part 4 of The Ordinary Princess. So she's going to go do dishwashing. There appeared to be more dishwashing to be done than ever that night. The piles of greasy dishes seemed as if they reached the ceiling. The Ordinary Princess broke 3 dinner plates and was severely scolded by the 4th assistant senior cook, whose temper was never very good. Look, there's a drawing. I feel like this is story time with Mark, and I'm just reading the children's book to you in a library and showing you the pictures. You have to pay attention when washing dishes, what with the slipperiness of wet plates, and the Ordinary Princess did not have her mind on plates. She was wondering whatever she was going to say to Nurse Marna. Oh dear, thought the Ordinary Princess, why did she have to come and spoil it all? She sighed heavily and dropped the soup plate. Oh. It broke into 18 quite small pieces, and one of those flew up and caught the 4th assistant senior cook on the nose. As we already know, his temper was not one of the best, and what with so much extra work on account of Queen Hedwig of Plum Blossomburg, and her daughter, and all the attendants staying on, and a bad attack of toothache that had been keeping him awake for the past nights, well, the end of it was that the Ordinary Princess found herself dismissed. Wait, what kind of dismissed? The 4th senior cook did not put it as elegantly as that. You're fired. Oh, no, shouted the 4th assistant senior cook. Take a week's wages. With that, he had ordered her out of the kitchen. No, you can't. Well, obviously he can, but no. I don't care, said the Ordinary Princess, climbing wearily up the 4th flight of stairs on her way to the attic. I don't care a bit. And a large tear rolled down her cheek and dripped off the point of her chin. Oh, she does care. Oh, dear, sobbed the Ordinary Princess, sitting down suddenly on a step. Whatever am I going to do now? Someone was whistling somewhere. Lavender's blue, rosemary's green. Hi, called Peregrine, in a loud whisper, appearing unexpectedly at the bottom of the staircase. I've been waiting to catch you. There was something I wanted to say, but the Ordinary Princess went on sitting on the stairs while her tears splashed onto her shabby dress. Peregrine came up the stairs 4 steps at a time. I say, he said, what's happened? I've been fired, sobbed the Ordinary Princess. You've been what? Dismissed, wept the Ordinary Princess. I broke 4 plates and cook fired me. Good, said Peregrine approvingly. What? How can you say that? Flared the Ordinary Princess. She stamped her foot and suddenly stopped crying. How can you be so horrid when you know quite well that I haven't saved nearly 100 pfennigs, and I don't know where I'm going to get another job? Darling Amy, said Peregrine, don't cry. I only said good because I think it's awful you're having to work so hard. You shall have all the pfennigs you want and all the dresses in the world. What? He lent her his pocket handkerchief, and the Ordinary Princess mopped her eyes. Sorry, I just bumped that. And blew her freckled nose and sniffed. I'd have given you 100 pfennigs weeks ago, said Peregrine, only I was afraid that if I did, you'd just buy a new dress and run off to live in the forest, and I should never see you again. Oh. He smiled his nice smile at her, and the Ordinary Princess could not help smiling back. Suddenly she felt much better. You see, began Peregrine, but just at that moment a door on the landing below opened, and through it came a very gorgeous person indeed. He was gonna tell her. He wore a suit of crimson and violet taffeta, all laced with gold and embroidered with twinkling jewels, and whenever there was room for one, he seemed to have added a bunch of ribbons. The toes of his purple velvet shoes were quite half a yard long, and he carried a tall golden stick. There's actually a picture of him. There he is, right there, looking all majestic. Look at his shoes. Look at those shoes right there. Now we shall catch it, thought the Ordinary Princess, for she was quite sure that tearful kitchen maids and sympathetic men of all work were not supposed to sit on staircases and gossip, even on back staircases. The very gorgeous person stood quite still and stared at them. His face got redder and redder until it was almost purple, and his eyes seemed as though they would pop out of his head in horror and amazement. Oh, my goodness, thought the Ordinary Princess frantically. Now Perry will get into hot water too, and I shall be fired all over again. But it seemed that the very gorgeous person was not going to fire anyone, for quite suddenly he stopped staring and getting purple, and bowed very low instead. I knew it! Your Majesty must excuse me, said the very gorgeous person, bowing again, this time even lower than before, but I was to request your Majesty's presence in the council chamber. One of your Majesty's guards informed me that you have been seen coming this way, and though I could not believe... Here the very gorgeous person broke off and gave an apologetic sort of cough, bowed again, and said humbly, I trust I do not intrude, but the Prime Minister begs to remind you that the matter is urgent. And with a shocked look at the Ordinary Princess, who really was looking very like an ordinary kitchen maid, he bowed himself backward through the door. Well, said the Ordinary Princess. Of course this would happen, said Peregrine. Well, I must say, said the Ordinary Princess, and without saying it she rose and started up the stairs in a very stately manner. Peregrine put out a hand and caught the hem of her skirt. Since it is almost impossible to continue walking up a staircase in a stately manner while someone is holding onto your dress, The ordinary princess stopped and said very haughtily indeed, "Will your majesty be so good as to release me?" "Don't show off," said Peregrine. "I can talk just like that too if I want to. And I was going to tell you, I really was. That's why I waited. That's what I waited for. Only, of course, that flat-footed fathead of a court chamberlain had to go and spoil it all. So you were a real prince. I mean, king. All the time," said the ordinary princess. Turning the page. "Yes," said the king. "I'm afraid I was." "For 2 pins," said the ordinary princess severely, "I'd give you a good hard slap." The king grinned at her cheerfully. "You can't slap a king," he said. "Oh, can't I?" said the ordinary princess, quite as if she could. Then they both laughed so much that they had to sit down on the stairs again. "Why did you tell me your name was Peregrine?" said the ordinary princess. "Well, you must admit that Algernon is pretty awful," said the king. "Besides, my name is Peregrine. At least, it's one of them. I've got 8 altogether. Between you and me," said the king, "the other 6 are pretty awful, too." "I've got 7, said the ordinary princess. "Some of them are simply terrible." And at that they laughed so much that they had to hold on to each other to keep from slipping off the step. "This is This is so awesome." "This is dreadful of us," said the ordinary princess, drying her smudged face with the edge of her shabby skirt. "We can't just go on sitting here and laughing. Someone will catch us. Besides, prime ministers and councils don't like being kept waiting." "Let 'em wait," said the king cheerfully. But the ordinary princess got up from her step and dusted her frock. "You may be a king," she said, "but kings are men of all work, too." "I was trying to forget it," said the king. "Good night, man of all work," said the ordinary princess. "Good night, kitchen maid," said the king. I love that their greetings changed. Ah. So the ordinary princess ran up to her bed in the attic, and the king went off to the royal council chambers. The councilors were yawning and fidgeting, because they had been waiting for quite a long time for the king, and anyway they hated night sessions. It made bedtime so late. "Be quiet, you're rich, no one cares." Sorry. But as the Lord Chamberlain had said, the matter under discussion was an urgent one, so when the king arrived, they all stopped yawning and looked rather severe, though their bows were as low and as correct as ever. "Gentlemen," said the king, sitting down on the gilded throne at the end of the council chamber, "you may be seated." There was a rustle of robes as the councilors sat down again. "And now," said the king cheerfully, "what's the trouble?" The trouble, it seemed, was the question of the king's marriage. The prime minister had called a council of state to urge his majesty to ask for the head. Oh my God, that would make this a totally different book. To ask for the hand of Her Royal Highness, the Princess Persephone of Plum Blossomburg. And now, in speeches that lasted fully an hour and a half, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs pointed out the advantages of the match. What a good thing it would be for the kingdom to have a queen. What an excellent thing it would be for the queen, or for the country to have such a rich and powerful ally as Plum Blossomburg. How greatly would it encourage trade, and how beautiful and gracious and charming and cultivated was the Princess Persephone. Some of the older councillors frankly dozed, and the king played tic-tac-toe with himself on a bit of blotting paper. He had to interrupt once or twice, but the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs all had good loud voices, and as they were absolutely determined to finish their speeches, he gave it up and went on playing tic-tac-toe and trying not to yawn. The fact of the matter was that the entire council had got so used to managing affairs while he was a little boy that they sometimes forgot that he was a little boy no longer, quite capable of thinking for himself. Blessed character development of characters who aren't the normal, because obviously Amy is the center. She's the protagonist, and I love when side characters get their own development. But by now they had all told him what to do and how to do it for so long that everybody had become used to it. So the king continued to play tic-tac-toe till there was no more room on the blotting paper, and the Prime Minister and the Chancellor and the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs had run out of things to say. When they had quite finished, the king tore up his piece of blotting paper and stood up. "Gentlemen," said the king, "I've listened with the deepest interest to all that you've had to say," which was really far from true. But royalty has to tell this kind of fib sometimes. "And may I say," continued the king, "that I am deeply touched by your concern for my welfare." Royalty has to talk like this too. "But," said the king, suddenly ceasing to be quite so royal, "I'm dashed if I'll propose to cousin Persephone." "Your Majesty," gasped the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, and all the councillors at once. "Don't interrupt me," said the king. "I have listened to all your speeches, and now you can jolly well listen to one of mine." "I am going," said the king, "to marry Her Serene and Royal Highness, the Princess Amethyst of Phantasmarania, with or without your permission. So there!" "But, your Majesty, I haven't finished yet," said the king severely. "I desire an embassy to set out for Phantasmarania immediately, to ask King Hildebrand for his daughter's hand in marriage, and the sooner," said the king, "the better. That's all I wanted to say." With which he bowed politely to the assembled councillors and marched off to bed. Phantasmarania, said the Prime Minister. It is an idea, mused the Chancellor. Well, really, said the learned councillors. Whatever will Queen Hedwig say, groaned the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. I like that a lot of these people, they have titles instead of names. Like, it's a very, very specific thing that MMK does, and I love it. It's so awesome. I say, said the king, reappearing rather suddenly around the door, I forgot to mention that I think one of you should drop a hint to Her Majesty my aunt that even the most friendly of visits ought to end sometime. She and my cousin and all the ragtag and bobtail they brought with them have been here for weeks and weeks, said the king severely, and it makes a lot of extra work for the kitchen maids. And with that he disappeared round the door again, leaving the council gasping with dismay. The Prime Minister was the first to recover. You know, said the Prime Minister, that idea of the king's about an alliance with Phantasmarania is not a bad one. Look, it's Queen Hedwig. Look at her, she looks awesome. I don't know why we didn't think of it before. It is every bit as powerful as Plum Blossom Blurg, with whom we are already connected. Queen Hedwig being the king's aunt. And come to think of it, said the Prime Minister thoughtfully, she's undoubtedly a very bossy sort of woman, and if our king married her daughter, she would probably be an almost permanent visitor in the castle. Yes, decided the Prime Minister, it is obviously all for the best. Chancellor, kindly see about drawing up a draft of the hint that His Majesty requested, and the rest of you had better start thinking about an embassy to King Hildebrand. Oh, how exciting is this? The next morning, when the ordinary princess woke up, she found a note that had been pushed under her door. It said, meet me at the summer house by the lily pond as soon as possible. Urgent. P. So as soon as she was dressed, the ordinary princess ran downstairs and let herself out through the side door of the castle. She went round by the kitchen gardens and past the greenhouses and cold frames and came through a back way into the castle gardens by the royal lily ponds. There was a cold morning, and there was frost on the castle lawns and a thin, glittering rim of ice around the ledge of lily ponds, and though it was early, someone was earlier still. Inside the summer house, someone was whistling Lavender's Blue. Look, there she is. Look at her. She's so excited. She's getting it. I thought you were never coming, said the king. It's a dreadfully cold morning, so I brought a warm cloak for you. I came as soon as I could, said the ordinary princess, snuggling gratefully into the cozy folds of the fur-lined velvet coat. Now look here, said the king, I haven't much time, as I'm supposed to be having breakfast with my Aunt Hedwig, and afterward there was so much state business to attend this morning that this is the only time I could get off, so pay strict attention to what I'm going to say. All right, said the ordinary princess. I'm listening. Well, first of all, said the king, will you marry me? Look, he's asking her. Look at it. Perry, gasped the ordinary princess. Well, yes or no, demanded Peregrine. Oh, Perry, laughed the ordinary princess, what a way to propose. There isn't time for a proper one, said Peregrine. I have to be with Aunt Hedwig at 8 o'clock sharp, and as this is going to be a particularly annoying day for her, I don't want to make matters worse by keep her waiting for her app. I've messed that sentence up. Keeping her waiting for her breakfast. But marrying a king is a very serious business, you know, the ordinary princess pointed out. Don't you think I ought to have a little time to consider it? No, said Peregrine. You told me yourself that you'd like me just as much as I turned out to be a coal heaver, remember? But you didn't turn out to be a coal heaver, did you? That's not the point, said Peregrine. What I want is a plain yes or no. Then are you sure that you don't mind freckles and turned-up noses and mouse-colored hair? I love them, said Peregrine. Yes or no? Yes, said the ordinary princess promptly. Darling kitchen maid, said Peregrine, catching her into his arms and kissing her. I knew you wouldn't desert me. Then that's all right. And now to business. You can't go on being a kitchen maid, and anyway, you've been fired, so you can't go on staying here. Why ever not, said the ordinary princess. Well, first of all, because I'm sending an embassy to ask your father for your hand, all properly. And it would be a bit awkward for everyone if you weren't there. Secondly, we can't go letting the populace find out that their future queen was once an assistant kitchen maid at the castle, because populaces are awful snobs, you know. I don't think they would ever recover from the shock. I expect you're right, agreed the ordinary princess forlornly. I shall have to go back. I'll come for you as soon as I can, promised Peregrine. But that won't be for months, said the ordinary princess, more forlornly than ever. You know what ages they take arranging things and fussing over royal weddings. I know, said Peregrine gloomily, but I'll tell the embassy to hurry things up as much as possible. In the meantime, I think you had better go off at once to Nurse Marta's, and I'll come there as early as ever I can tomorrow morning to take you home. We can ride through the forest, and no one will ever know. All right, said the ordinary princess. There's the 8:15 bell. You'll have to run. Goodbye, Perry, darling, and don't let your Aunt Hedwig bully you too much. This book, I swear. Okay, I'm going to make a third video to finish this off.